because I'm still looking at shorts on the dollar. So to start things off, to end things off, actually, we ended off the week pretty bearish. We have started off a little bit bullish here, but all I'm looking at is this as retracement for the market to continue falling. So as we push up higher, I'm looking for price to find resistance and put that lower high in. I've talked a lot about that head and shoulder pattern. You got the left shoulder over here, you got the head. Let's make sure we can see that left shoulder over there, the head over there. And now I'm looking for that right shoulder, first lower high of that sequence. So essentially a pullback of this move. If I whip out the Fibonacci from the high to the low and make sure we can see that as well from the high to the low, you can see you've got the 50% there, 0.618 in that region, which also lines up pretty nicely with that resistance on the left there too. So I'm looking for price to come back into that area for that lower high. After that break of structure, lower high, I'm expecting the market to push down, and this is on the 4-hour chart on the dollar. That just reminds me we don't have the watermark. There we go. So this is the DXY on the 4-hour chart. I'm expecting that move to the downside from that 106.8, 107 area. And of course, if I quickly go to the higher time frames, you can see we're still trading in that weekly, monthly resistance really, and price is still doing a pretty good job at respecting that. In fact, last week's candle closes a really strong bearish engulfing candle, as we can see here. So that really does tell me that price is having a really tough time trying to break through 107. And since we're seeing a big shift in momentum, I would expect to see more downside this week at some point, and probably for the next 2 or 3 weeks really, because I don't think I mean, of course, anything can happen. Price could suddenly be very bullish. Maybe we get a big breakout. NFPs this Friday. Who knows? But the likelihood of us seeing some downside is a lot greater now. So I'm pretty bearish on USD going forward. So looking at that lower high, dropping to the 4-hour chart, looking at that retest, lower high, and then some shorts from that 107 area, pretty much is the plan. EURUSD, I'm looking for something similar, but in the opposite direction. The only thing I don't like about Euro just yet is that we haven't broken through structure. It would be very nice if EURUSD could take up the highs. Pound USD has actually gone and done that, which is why I like pound a lot more. And I'll get into pound USD in a moment, but it would be nice if price could take up the highs there first to indicate to us, okay, structure is changing on the lower time frames, and now expecting the higher lows to form and some more upside. But the analysis is pretty much the same on the higher time frames. With Euro, the fact that price is respecting such a key level on the weekly chart, doing very, very well. And we also touched on the monthly candle closure last week as well, how price is still holding on to a really strong level of monthly support as well. We left behind a really big wick to the downside, piercing through that zone, but we pull back up. So even from a monthly standpoint, the monthly candle is struggling to break through these prices, and we could be seeing price turn around. So I do think we probably will see a bullish December for EURUSD, unless of course we have a massive breakout. But I'm looking at a bounce here, and I'm looking at some upside there for EURUSD as well. So I want to see that break of structure. Then I'll look for pullbacks, and pretty much the same opportunity as we had in the dollar. Literally looking at the inverse of that and looking for some upside targets. I spoke about these areas as some nice areas to target, because if we are going to bounce from here, we probably will see a pretty big move, but at least come back to retest some of these lows. 1.07, 1.076 makes a lot of sense to me. So EURUSD expecting a bounce higher this week. Pound USD expecting another bounce higher as well. This one we've actually had a break of structure, so I actually really like the price action with pound a lot more. Doesn't make any sense. Much more than EURUSD, because we have that break of structure, which means that this bearish structure is now kind of ended, invalidated, and now we're expecting higher lows to form. So again, looking at that opportunity on the dollar, literally the inverse of that is literally what we're seeing here for pound. Looking at pullback to this area, a higher low, and then looking at the continuation to the upside. And of course, as I said on my weekly analysis, if you haven't checked it out, feel free to go do so. I'm looking for targeting this area this week around 1.284. You might see some downside from there. I think that's a healthy target for a trade, especially if we can get some entries down here. Should be looking at comfortably, 1 to 2s, 1 to 3s, 1 to 4s, and maybe beyond that, depending on your entry and your stop loss. But looking at something like this week for pound USD, back into that level. And also, it does look like from a monthly perspective, we might be putting another higher low in because the market has been slowly pushing to the upside. With the lower time frames, we did get the break through the trend line, but by the end of the month, we actually pulled back and left behind a pretty big wick there. So it looks like the market's still keeping up with those higher lows, and possibly we might see another bullish month as well for pound USD to the upside. So I'm looking at a lot of upside now for pound. The market's still very, very stretched to the downside, as you can see. Now we've got that bit of an up move breaking structure, looking at the higher low to that, and looking at some upside back into 1.285. Now looking at dollar CAD. Dollar CAD's also another one I like to the downside. It hasn't broken through structure yet, but looking at the monthly candle closure, looking at the weekly candle closure last week as well, I'm not convinced about the break to the upside. Price is still trading at that level of resistance. It was a slight candle closure to the upside, very similar to what we have with the DXY the past weekly candle closure, which was very weak to the upside, so I wasn't convinced. Same here with the monthly candle. Big wick to the upside, very small candle closure. I wouldn't be too surprised if next month's candle, this month's candle, does close bearish here and we start trading back underneath that level, and that just becomes a big fake out. So overall, not convinced by the break. And of course, if I drop to the weekly chart as well, I'm not convinced by the break as well. You can see the last week's candle, big wick to the upside, pull back down. Not really what you want to be seeing if price is going to break through such a significant level. You want to see forceful candles, strong closures, and not really leaving behind big wicks, which is what we're doing. So I'm anticipating to see some downside now for dollar and this to be a big fake out and us to roll over, especially if USD is going to fall from 107. There's a good chance we're going to see dollar CAD follow suit as well. But the key thing I want to see, though, before I do get into any shorts and anticipate that to be a big fake out, is, of course, a break of the structure, because market is still bullish on the 4-hour chart, which is the chart I'm looking to trade on. You got the low there, you got the high there, you got the higher low, you got the higher high. So the market is still evidently slowly pushing to the upside. So I need price to invalidate that, break the lows, tell me that, okay, this structure is no more, no mass, and we're probably going to see some lower highs after that. And that's exactly where I want to be looking for my shorts and take some retest. Maybe the retest of that low. It really depends on the break and the pullback where I find the entries, and of course I'll keep you guys updated as price action develops. But something like that is basically what I'm looking for: lower highs and a push down. I remember Ben was mentioning this last week as well. And yeah, if you do get that break of structure, I'm pretty bearish on dollar CAD. So dollar CAD shorts, pound USD buys look good. Euro, if it can break structure and pull back, that will look good as well. Aussie dollar and New Zealand dollar, not as much of a fan of these ones as pound, dollar CAD, and euro. I still said with Aussie dollar, I like the buys from 0.64, but we're not quite trading there yet. So I'm not really interested in Aussie dollar. Then of course, once we do get to that zone, I need price to start breaking structure, start giving some higher lows before I can find some entries. So that has quite a way to develop. So I'm not as focused with Aussie dollar this week, but that's still a phenomenal level to buy from. Really strong level of support. If we get there again, I do see a likely chance of us bouncing to the upside, still the market being so stretched as well. So I'm looking at a bit of a bounce there for Aussie dollar, possibly back to the highs if it's going to continue to swing, up and down as the range continues. There's a good chance we could push all the way back to 0.69, but for now, at least looking at a bounce at 0.64. Ends the USD, similar situation as well. This one's come back into a nice low. It has bounced from there. Looks like price is just about to break through some structure now on the 4-hour chart. Hasn't quite done it. It's just left a bunch of wicks there to the upside, so not the convincing break of structure I'm looking for, but it looks like it's getting there. Maybe we might see a push to the upside today, break the highs, and then we might look to continue that to the upside. But again, New Zealand dollar market that's very stretched, come back to a big level, essentially doing what I want Aussie dollar to do, come a little bit lower, test a big level, and now I'm expecting us to have a bit of a bounce here to the upside, and possibly with New Zealand dollar, could be a massive swing back to the highs there potentially. And if we're going to continue this ranging market, exact same with Aussie dollar, there's a good chance we could push all the way back to the highs up there as well. So there is a lot of upside for the USD pairs, especially if dollar's going to have a big seller from the high. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see big moves like this. Again, not a pair that I'm highly interested with. With pound USD looks a little bit better to me. Euro if that can break structure, and dollar CAD looks really good as well. So that's kind of where my focus is. Then in terms of gold and silver, gold, we've had some downside with this one. It hasn't been totally clear, to be honest. Gold's not really a market which I'm looking to trade myself. We had that big break of structure there. The market's pulled back, did take out some highs in the 4-hour chart, and now we're just a little bit in limbo here. Price is respecting support pretty well. Nice bounce there last week. Not convinced by the bounce, I must admit. It did come into that area, nice wicks to the downside, but have been very, very corrective in this way up. So it's not like we've seen impressive momentum pushing to the upside, or at least not yet. So I'm not quite convinced. If anything, this looks like a correction for possibly a continuation as well. So I'm not quite convinced with the buys at the moment with gold. I'm still overall bullish on gold, but not seeing a clean opportunity to find some buys. And then last week, we were also talking about some nice sells as we approach this area here as well. Market was to push maybe up one more time. There could be some nice shorts there this week, at least for a push back down to the low, and then we can go from there. Maybe we get the breakout, maybe price bounces. I think the shorts there look clean, a lot of momentum, corrective behavior. There's probably a good chance of us seeing a nice reaction, and it lines up with that high there as well on the left, around 26.75, 26.80. So I think that's a nice place to look to short gold if you are interested in gold downside. But upside, not seeing a clean opportunity just yet. And in terms of silver, silver's pretty clear to me in terms of what I want to do in the plan. Silver, again, another one which I'm overall still pretty bullish, looking for upside. This is our massive swing low down there. And then, of course, you've got your swing high all the way up there. I'm looking at essentially this as a pullback of that move. So if that is the case, then I'm looking for price to start to break structure again to the upside and start to see some higher highs and higher lows. So that's essentially what I'm looking for silver. And then the plan is to try and hop on the back of these buys here to try and take it back to the high at 34.8, 35 roughly. That really much is the plan. So silver, I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the market to start showing evidence. I mean, you can look for some more aggressive buys in terms of trying to catch the low down here. That's a possibility. A bit more an aggressive trade because market hasn't really got going yet, but you're looking at a better risk reward if it does play out. You're looking for the safe opportunities. You're waiting for price to start to develop some higher highs and higher lows. And what would be a really nice prospect is if the market can break above the resistance there and we see a high low forming. That'd be a really nice trade back to the high. But overall, I'm just kind of waiting for silver to ripen up